Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeff White Fitness Solutions. Thanks for checking out this video today. And today, this video is financial fitness. This is definitely financial fitness. Now, we've all heard the phrase, you'll own nothing and be happy. Now, that phrase comes from the WEF, and they say that this is how we will be living by the year 2030. They say by the year 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. Now, I see the own nothing part because I see things are slowly being taken away from us. Inflation is crazy. You got high rents. Everything is just going chaotic. But the be happy part, I just didn't understand. So I have made a video previously, and someone really just kind of broke it down as to how we will be happy owning nothing. And the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. So I want to know what you guys think. So check this out. Also, please like and subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of great information I want to share, and I like to talk about things that are not discussed. So please share your thoughts on this because I think this is very interesting. So as I said, I couldn't understand how people could own nothing and be happy, and I made a previous video. And the art of prepping, he's a good friend of mine. He has a channel called the art of prepping, and he responded to the video, and you can kind of get an idea of what I'm going to say here. But he was talking about debt forgiveness, and so I just read a part of his response on my previous video. He says, my thoughts on why people may be happy or why they would think that they will be happy to own nothing has to do with debt forgiveness. Going forward, more and more people are going to be under heavy loads of unsustainable debt. They'll be priced out of the housing market and not be able to invest for their future. I could see many people accepting debt forgiveness. If they get their basic needs met by the government, which would be a new form of welfare, in exchange for surrendering ownership of property, it will probably start as a grassroots movement planted by globalists. So that makes a whole lot of sense to me. The debt forgiveness is real. And we see it a little bit right now with a student loan forgiveness. If you really think about it, they're really trying to push that, but then they talk about it, but then they don't talk about it. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, okay, I think he's definitely on to something. So I want to thank my friend for coming up with this thought to put it in my head. Again, his channel is the art of prepping, so check him out. So after he made that comment, I got to really thinking how vital money is to our lives. Our lives revolve around money in a lot of cases, not all, of course, but in a lot of instances, money plays a key role in our lives. It can be a blessing and a curse. And for a lot of people, it's a curse. And what I mean by that is it's a leading cause of stress, worry, and anxiety. Now, here are just a couple of examples. Financial matters is a leading cause of divorce in some couples, and it is a leading cause of stress. I mean, ask yourself, how many times have you stayed up at night worrying about how you're going to pay your bills? This is a this is a problem that a lot of people are facing, especially now with inflation being the way it is. How are people going to pay their rent? How are they going to pay for gas to get to and from work? How are they going to pay for food? That's stressful. That's a lot of stress on people. And I don't think it's going to get any easier anytime soon. And so we have to deal with this. So this could be a way how people can own nothing and be happy. So then I wanted to look at some numbers and get a feel for where we are as a society and what's really going on. And what I found, quite frankly, surprised me. And here are just three clippings. And it says consumer debt hits record $16 trillion. That's trillion with a T, as credit card use surges during inflation. So people are turning to credit cards to pay bills on a variety of things. Now, I was on Twitter maybe 3 weeks ago, and I saw someone post that they had used their credit card to pay their rent for the first time. Their credit card. This is pretty scary, y'all. A lot of people are getting to the point where they're turning to credit cards for basic expenses, rent, utilities, food. They are turning to credit. So Own nothing and be happy? Hey, I don't know, guys, but people are struggling and they're just doing any and everything to pay their bills now. Okay, so let's take it just another step further. We live in a credit driven society. And here are just a few excellent examples that we all can relate to. And we've all seen commercials like this: no cash, bad credit, no problem. Companies will gladly finance you to buy certain items. And what do people do? They will pay the minimum every single month until it's paid off. And in many instances, it may not get paid off. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just talking about the reality that we live in. Many people will put stuff on credit, and technically, you still don't own it. You're just paying on it. And if you lose your job or something happens, guess what? They will come in and take what you got. Or you will put certain things on credit because you just don't have the cash to pay for it. How many of us have had car repairs that cost thousands of dollars and we had to finance it? How many people had their roof on their home, something happened, they had to get that fixed? Or their air conditioning went out in their home and they had to finance it. So we do a lot of financing in this country, and we live in a credit driven society. And then when it comes to products, if we are paying on it month after month, technically we don't own it until we pay it off. So if you lose your job or something happens, they could come in and take your stuff. You own nothing. Technically, you own nothing. See, guys, this is how they get you. They get you with the no money down, the buy now, pay later, and you think it's a good deal. It is a good deal if you can afford it. The problem comes if you lose your job or if your expenses get out of control, like today. So you're paying on something for months and years in some instances, and you still don't technically own it. That is the problem. Our society is credit driven. We don't focus on owning something, especially long term. We think, okay, it's out of date, let me get a new one. We do that with cars, we do that with phones, we do that with computers, we do it all types of stuff. And let me tell you a real quick story. When I was a rookie stockbroker many years ago, and this is before the .com and the online trading really took hold. This is back when we had to cold call people, and if they agreed to work with us, they would mail us checks. They'd either mail it or wire, but most of the time people mailed checks. So anyway, I worked with in a brokerage firm, and some of these guys were big time ballers, and they were making 40, 50, $60,000 a month. I am not exaggerating. And so, unfortunately, it was short lived for some of them because the stock market crashed and there was a lot of fallout. And one guy who I really looked up to, he had this really nice Mercedes. It was brand new, and he was a baller. He was a baller with this car. But unfortunately, when the market crashed, he had to get rid of his car, and he went from that Mercedes to like a used Datsun. I am not exaggerating. And I couldn't ask him why, what happened, but it turns out he didn't own the car, he leased it. And so he couldn't afford his lease, so he had to get something just to get by. And so, unfortunately, if you don't own it, you're going to have a lot of trouble if you lose your job or your expenses get out of hand. So it's very important that you remember that and keep that in mind when you hear the phrase, you'll own nothing and be happy. Okay, so now this is my own personal projection, my own theory. So now some of you can say, well, I understand what you're saying, but I still don't see how we make the jump from owning our stuff to not owning anything and being happy. Well, I think what's going to happen is they're just going to let the system just destroy itself. As you can see, our economy is, I would say it's in a mess. That's my personal opinion. Consumer debt is at 16 trillion. The U.S. owes over $30 trillion in debt, and they're just going to let the system blow up. People are going to get to the point where they can't afford to buy food, to pay rent, and they're going to be at their wits' end. And that's when the government is going to come in and save the day. They're going to say, hey, we got this new monetary system. We got the central bank digital currency. And we're going to convert from the old system to the new system. And with this new system, if you have some outstanding debt and you can't pay it, we're going to wipe that slate clean. The catch for you is if you can't pay it, then we're going to own it. Now, like I say, that's my own personal opinion. I think that's how they're going to do it. If you are able to pay it off, then great. If you can't pay it off, we're going to pay it off for you, but we're going to own it. Now, some people may be relieved that they don't have to pay that debt, and they will gladly accept this deal. In addition, they will also come out with what's called the universal basic income, which goes hand in hand with the central bank digital currency, because that will be the currency they give you to live on. And so if people are at their wits' end and desperate, they will take anything you give them. And this just might be where we're headed. Now, remember, I'm not making this stuff up. These plans for us to own nothing and be happy are in the works. You can clearly see from these two stories here. Actually, these are two separate stories. One says World Economic Forum calls to reduce private vehicles by eliminating ownership of vehicles. And in the second one here, it says basically we own nothing. So they're working on this right now as we speak. The question is, how do we get the people to go along with it? And I believe it's by blowing up the economy and having people with no other options. So we know the end game. The question is, how do we get to the end game? And I think this is how they do it, by blowing up the economy and having people so desperate that they will take any offer, any opportunity to survive. And that opportunity will mean giving up your private ownership of stuff that you may not necessarily own. Okay, guys, so I would love to know what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback on this. But in addition to talking about the potential problem, we got to talk about the solution. So if you are not in favor of owning nothing and being happy, then these are some things I think we can do to help protect ourselves and maintain the stuff that we own. So number one is get out of debt. We got to just get out of debt. The debt trap is a monster, and that is what's keeping so many of us down and keeping us up at night. So that means own your items outright. You got to own it. I have an old truck. My wife has an old truck, but guess what? They're paid for. So I could have $2 in my pocket, but I still got my truck. I'm still rolling. Next, we got to decrease our reliance on the credit cards. We do. And it's hard these days. I know that because inflation is going crazy, but we have to cut back as much as we can. And one way to do that is to start working on generating multiple streams of income and passive income. Because the problem is, so many of us have just that one income. That is what kills us. You got to have multiple streams of income during times like this. Next, get your physical gold and silver. Gold and silver have been used as money for thousands of years and will continue to be money well after the dollar is done. Next, buy assets. When I say assets, I'm talking about things that can maintain their value or increase in value or generate revenue for you. These are going to be huge as time goes on. Next, stock up on food and supplies and plant a garden. As inflation goes up, if we have food shortages, the more you have in your home, the better. And last but certainly not least, and I don't talk about this enough, and this was brought to my attention, we got to have security, y'all. You got to be able to protect your stuff. And now there are different ways or different security options. So in addition to things that go bang or pow, consider getting other non-lethal things as well that you can have scattered throughout your house, like pepper spray, mace, and even stun guns. Something you can get to really quick. So these are just some things that we can do. So let's talk about it and let me know what you think. And do you All right, guys, thanks for checking out the video today, and I would love to hear your feedback. Now, one thing I will say is I believe the powers that be have plans for us, but I'm not so sure those plans are in our best interest. So I think it's important that we learn how to do for self. And I have written 11 books, and here are two books I think are fantastic for these times we're living in. The first one is Invest for Success, Millionaire West Strategies Not Taught in School, and I have one for kids also, Planting Seeds, the Children's Guide to Entrepreneurship. I talk about things that are not normally discussed that I think can help us improve our situations and not rely on a job or just one stream of income to get by. So, thanks for checking out the video, and check out my books today on Amazon. And again, if you have any other comments or suggestions or things that we can do, or if you have any ideas about where we're headed, please feel free to leave a comment, because we need to talk about this, because this is getting quite serious. Okay, guys, take care. Peace.